Around the NFL podcast is more stacked than the AFC West.
From the beaches of Southern California, it's Around the NFL. I'm Dan Hanzus. On a patio filled with some heroes, Gregg Rosenthal, Marc Sessler. And here we are at the 2022 NFL Media Summit from the Lowe's Santa Monica Hotel. And Marc, you got that glow. You got that glow.
I'm in a place that I simply enjoy at this point because we are under large umbrellas that shade us. A nice ocean breeze crosses our face. I'm watching grown adults on swing sets down on the beach right by the ocean. The only thing missing is the fact that we're working versus in a leisure setting right now.
Well, they're on the rings. They are not messing around. There's some high-level gymnastics going on. As you said, not just Southern California. It's Santa Monica. This is my hometown now.
It is.
I guess it's not my hometown.
Your adopted hometown.
But it's 9 years long, and it's nice to have a home game.
If I may be personal with you, gentlemen, for a moment. I, as you know, native of New York. And when I was 19 years old, I joined my Uncle Stu and Aunt Carrie and their children. They invited me to a California trip. I had never been out to California before. So I got on the plane. I'd really not been anywhere at that point in my life. So we got on the plane, came over here, stayed at this very hotel.
Wow.
And it looks very similar as it did in 1999, right down to the grass patch right in front of the beach right behind us right now, where I remember playing wiffle ball with Mike and Eric. And that started kind of a lifelong fascination and like a romance that I had for Southern California. And I think it played a role in me eventually coming out here. I just have a kind of a romantic viewpoint of California as an East Coaster, and it kind of started right here.
On that trip, did you discover love?
Did I discover love? I would say no.
You were 9?
I was 19.
Oh, 19.
I would not
have been a prime territory to have an adventure.
Yeah, it took me. I was never the guy, and I ended up in a very good spot with a great woman, Emily. But when I was younger, it took me longer to figure out how to do those things, and that meant also like, if you're the guy going on a trip to California. Did you have a whirlwind romance while you were out there? No, that wasn't me as a teenager.
You were playing wiffle ball, so
that
you were
Marc.
also
Yeah.
you were
that
busy.
Was Marc.
I have had trips like that at that age. So.
I was when I first got out. I feel like that's the logical feeling. My first time out here wasn't until I was like for a college internship between college years, and it was like I can't imagine coming out here and not thinking, oh my God! They let people live here. Come live here. Why wouldn't you think that?
It's so
at
nice.
least just for a little bit.
The weather and just felt. Again, as someone from the other side of the country, is just like people. I just like the vibe out here, and I still feel that way. I'm not a jaded Californian now.
Me neither.
11
the first
years
time
later.
I came to California, not similar to yours because I was not put up in a hotel. I left Grand Central Station in New York City. On a Greyhound bus. Back then, you could get a $100 round trip to anywhere in the country. So I went to San Francisco. We got snowed in, all highways, snowed in Cheyenne, Wyoming, and had to stay in a hotel with all these Greyhound people for 3 days. Then made it to San Francisco, but I had to pick my mom up at Katona Station outside of New York 3 days later, so I had to get right back on the Greyhound bus and go back. So I was in San Francisco for about 7 hours.
Oh, my God.
It's like the most insane story I've ever heard.
Did you have any romance with any of the Greyhounders?
Actually, there was a woman who had a child, but she was like a single mom, but we wrote letters to each other for a couple years after that. Sure.
We wrote letters to each other.
All right. There you go. The little love letter to California. And here we are. Great show coming up today. We have guests galore. Kyle Brandt, Emmy award-winning host of Good Morning Football, will join us in a bit. Also, and listen, this is something that I feel like we've been building toward, and I'm a little nervous about how it was going to play out. But it's like we had to get Rap Sheet and Gregg together, preferably with microphones on.
I mean, by we building towards it, you're saying I Dan Hanzus was building toward. This wouldn't have happened. This was you and your element. This is you bringing it together for the good of the podcast.
Well, I think I like
not
to
our,
think it's
not
beyond
our friendship.
that.
Yeah,
It's beyond just
content.
no, it's beyond content. I knew we needed to get the boys together, Mark, and fireworks are expected.
I think that when it's listened to, people will realize, against what Gregg just said, that you had a higher purpose. And, it's a must listen. It's a trenchant combo.
All right, so don't. I know now you're really interested how it goes, but don't fast forward. We got a lot of other things to get to, starting with any takeaways, guys, from the NFL Media Summit. We've been to about 5 or 6 of these things at least by now. Why don't we start here, because it's always fun. Chris Wessling, rest in peace, good man, Chris Wessling. He used to document the corpo jargon that was uttered at these events. And just a quick idea of what it is. It's everyone that is on camera, on mic, that works on shows. Everyone's invited to this hotel for 2 days, and it's a series of speeches, seminars, breakout groups.
So it's middle management unloading a year's worth of meetings they've been to on us also, but
Right, and then upper management.
It's
sharing
mostly
their
upper
opinions on
management.
things.
Upper management.
It's the highest levels of management, and then there's also a lot of producers and people behind the scenes too who are here who work on the shows that we're on.
The shadowy league figures step out of the shadows just for 48 hours in June.
And as a footnote, I adore the upper management figures.
Same.
From head to toe.
Great people.
Same.
A to Z.
Same.
Great.
Anyway, what are some corpo jargon
Okay.
this year? 22.
Well, my favorite. This wasn't a corpo jargon, but I just thought that Operation Hoya was very intriguing because it was truly a company secret plan. Which maybe I shouldn't say it, but I don't think that gives away anything. And I just love that the company secret plan was named Operation Hoya. But for more corporate speak, a lot of inflection point. Heard a lot of inflection point. There was a lot of when you have success, we have success.
Good.
Or different variations of that.
Good intro.
Emerging avenues.
Oh, yeah.
Emerging avenues was a good
That's
one.
the new above the treetops.
Now, these are, I think at some point, these people view themselves, and again, I adore them as creative types. So they find new ways of language to describe very mundane business tactics.
We were in a side session learning best practices for social media. They had people from Instagram and stuff, and they were talking about two-fact. And I was like, thinking in my head, two-fact.
Two-factor.
And that's just two-factor authentication. But you can't say two-factor. You just go two-fact.
No, you look like a total
you gotta save that second, that half of a second of saying two-factor and go two-fact.
And by the way, if I to use a all-time famous corpo jargon I learned here for the first time, I'm going to open up the kimono here and share with you power user.
Oh, that was a good
power
one.
user.
Yeah, power user.
That's a good one.
I don't
know what it means, but it's a good one.
We were separated into breakout groups too, so we didn't all have the same exact experience. I think they weren't in any cases thrilling experiences, but they were different.
For me, it was.
All right,
that's the best part of the summit is those side groups. We'll talk about talk about that later. Some are better than others.
I heard this over and over. Explosion of content.
Yeah. Explosion of content.
That's I think an evolution of fire hose of content.
Yeah, well, it sounds even like a little bit less.
A little
than
more
fire.
violent.
That's similar to what
fire hose would come after the explosion.
That's similar to scalable content. There was a lot of scalable. You want the content to be scalable.
All right. Anything else?
I liked when they would talk about, and I'm not sure I totally understand this one, but it was they would say things that we would take on a lot of friction.
Right.
Which just hits me a different way. But they were talking about okay, we're going to enter into the marketplace, and there's certain aspects here that's going to take on a lot of friction.
Well, that just sounds blue.
Right, that's how I sort of took it, but it was a lot of
Gregg,
friction.
you are sometimes known to create friction. One of my favorite moments was at the very end of the seminar, second day, where you rose your hand during a town hall conversation with the highest of upper management, and shared what I thought was a fair opinion about something to do with the event. and the head top dog, the shadowiest of the shadowy league figures, responded, "I could not disagree with you more." That was funny.
And this was part 2 because there was a minor irritation from the high-up exec towards Gregg 2 days in a row. And Gregg is a good parent, so he left to transport his children to summer camp, Gregg, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so summer camp. So yesterday he left without causing no one seemed to know because it's like he could be getting up to get a glass of water. This time it came right while this high-up executive was, getting lambasted with tough questions. And as Gregg sort of dismissively got up and rolled out of the room, a hyper stink eye came from executive towards Gregg exiting.
No.
So then this encounter happened later, about a couple hours. So it's just another figure
there's
that
a connection?
Gregg just has so many people that he needs to work with.
It's one of your great skills, Gregg. Also, the point that you made, and it's too esoteric for the audience to care about, and we should keep it a little bit behind the kimono. But Gregg's point that he made after the top official on stage disagreed with Gregg, but sitting directly behind me, Michael Irvin, who was either for much of the seminar either sleeping or talking on his cell phone at a low volume. He was just saying, as the answer is being given and shooting down Gregg's point, he was going, yep, nope, that would never work. Nope.
See, here's the thing, though. I had many people come up to me and appreciate what I said because I was speaking to what
I'm just being a reporter right now and telling you what I saw and heard.
I get it, but I'm saying Michael was in the minority among the talent and producers that were there because all I was voicing was a frustration with this event in particular and how we could do a better job with it in the future and as a company. And it was the exact same thing that literally not literally every, but many other people were all talking about throughout the weekend, and I heard a lot of people after, and I heard one of the top executives come up after and almost was apologetic. He's like, I tried to push that same idea, and it got shut down. And
Greg
he
trying
was
to talk to himself to not be worried about getting a
and
phone call a little later.
This made me more worried if he hadn't said anything. He's like, just making sure you're okay, though. I was like, no, I didn't.
There was one very talented female reporter that texted me during Gregg's fracas, justice for Gregg. So you did have support inside the room.
Nice.
You had support.
And
what is wrong with me that once you realize you're the person that keeps getting into confrontations with people at work in some
that's
way.
Something for your psychiatrist.
You have to look at what's the problem.
You're potentially the beeline behind
I had a prominent podcaster at this company during Gregg's confrontation text me 2 words, odd fight.
Because it was.
And since I brought up
DJ?
Michael, I didn't say who it was.
Who else would it be?
Michael
there's a
Irvin.
lot of prominent
Do you want to hear one more
podcasters.
Michael Irvin? No, because
No.
he's the best at these events. And I got to give Michael Irvin credit. The man is a 3-time Super Bowl champion. He's a legit, one of the more well-known sports personalities in America. He's at this event both days, every minute, okay? I'm not saying he's totally plugged in, but he's sitting directly behind me. And
right.
it's just
and that's not true of all the big time talent.
No, and he's so famous. He could be totally checked out, but sometimes all of a sudden he's super checked in. And at one point they were showing a chart that was plotting the traditional TV usage trends. And the,
why do we need that? Why do we need that?
And the speaker was like, "This is really amazing." And then out of nowhere, Irvin, who I thought was sleeping, goes, "Ha ha ha ha! Yes, it is." Wait, he's paying attention to the usage chart.
I think he probably had he was just like the same way on this show with sound bites towards a certain person. There were just maybe Michael Irvin sound bites that he'd press play on to make people think he was plugged in.
I wish he was on our show.
Do
you have a Marc sound bite you could just play at will?
I have plenty.
Yeah, just pick one. Play one just for fun.
Oh, yeah. I'm with myself also.
We get that, Marc. We get that. Soon you will be.
Irvin
I'm having a weird day.
Would be high on my list of players or other on-air personalities that I would take in a draft of the breakout rooms. So we get divided into 3 different breakout rooms, and then we go into a bunch of different sessions. Mm-hmm. And I've learned over these years, and we've done a lot of these now, that's to me that's the best part of the couple of days, because that's where some tough questions are being asked, where some upper management's feet really get put to the fire. Irvin would be high on my list just for the comedy of it. He would maybe be fun in those rooms.
Michael Irvin.
We had a great room. I had a lot of people that I would draft high. Who would you be your first draft pick if you're taking people for those rooms.
If I wanted like hard-hitting questions and
just whatever
some real
you want.
dialogue,
anything.
Give me Jim Trotter.
Yeah,
first overall.
Yeah, Jim Trotter.
Interesting. I enjoyed Mike Garafolo as always.
Okay.
But we had Steve Smith in the room and Kurt Warner, and I was sitting next to Steve Smith and Kurt Warner. I was kind of like fanning out a little bit, to be honest. It's just like these guys are still basically in the locker room sometimes in these sessions, and they speak their mind, and Kurt Warner takes like the encouraging quarterback leadership role, but then Steve Smith does the Steve Smith thing where he'll go on a 10-minute rant that totally takes the speaker and dissembles them.
We're hoping, Steve Smith, always very nice to us around the NFL show.
Gotta get him on the show.
Familiar with him. We spoke with him. He, like many of the players, get very early flights, maybe even before the whole thing's over, and he was out of here, but he said he's going to be in L.A. quite a bit this fall, and it will be coming on the show. We're working on that.
All right, we'll have Justin Handel reaching out to Steve Smith personally.
Yeah, that's up.
And then you have to record those conversations.
Claybon would be very high on my list of the side
Thank
group.
you for bringing up Claybon. Just one quick note. Claybon was sitting next to who were you guys sitting next to during the seminar? I was next to not Jeremiah. I was next to Cynthia and MJD.
I was next to Taylor Bisciotti.
Yep.
And Ian Rapoport, who never showed up on day one in the seat, but he was here today.
Wow. I was next to D'Angelo Hall and then Marc Ross, the former Giants executive.
So Claybon is next to Michael Irvin, and I wish Claybon was here because I got to talk to him about this. By the end of the second day, every time Irvin would say something and laugh uproariously, he would like lean back and like make eye contact with Claybon, and then Claybon, by the end of it, he was like the Ed McMahon to Johnny Carson. Like, Claybon was like, you are correct, sir. And they were just having a great time together. I was like, this
amazing.
could be a TV show.
Oh, we need that.
I enjoyed that.
That is amazing. Claybon, who I basically stole his question when I was annoying the executive, just things that he had been talking about, but had the worst take of all time. And it made me happy that even one of the great takesmen of our time, Claybon, could have bad takes, which was that there are as many men's small items of clothing at stores as men's large and extra large. And I was just saying, you don't know the plight of the small man. Like, if you legitimately think that. And he fought hard on this, and I was just like, this is nowhere near
he's wrong.
factual.
He's wrong, because a typical rack, it's like 70% large, extra large, and then you're searching for mediums.
Of course. Like, in most men as small as me, they almost don't want to admit it, so they're wearing mediums, but they're too big, and it's like it's not a good fit.
Take me inside your world.
It's different. This is why you got to outfit yourself when I make that trip to Tokyo. Judy Batista, by the way, a great person in those rooms. We had a great room.
Yes.
Willie becomes a different Willie McGinnis, and you get a real Willie, a little different than a TA Willie. Willie was amazing. Colleen Wolfe will just throw in one zinger.
Oh, yeah,
So just be like, hey, would you consider having women on the NFL draft coverage next year? And just see the executives' faces melt off at that question.
The blood drain from the faces.
It's important. It's important. You want to add value in these rooms.
It's cool, though. I think I hope this is interesting to the listeners.
I
And maybe
think
it's the middle of June, so
How
we're doing our
many
best.
comments did you make, Dan, during the breakout sessions?
I said 2 words.
Yeah, I
kind of lay low in this.
I
this
decided
whole thing.
that anything I would say would probably only decrease my merit in the room, because it was high up executives that weren't even sure why I was there potentially.
Right.
I like to throw in 1 or 2. And I moved on from my annual, how are you going to monetize podcasts question? Because we're
part
on
of the conversation now.
We're on the right track. That's
nice job.
gotten
figured that
more
out.
respect. And I do. Before we move on, I just want to give a shout out to someone we've mentioned on this show before. Ali Banpuri had a moment.
He did.
He is our writing editor, and a lot of the people who were in front of the lectern and had a microphone didn't really deliver, and it was a tough first morning, I would say. Just saying, it was kind of...
I don't think that's necessarily fair, because it's not an easy task.
It's boring, though. And Ali came up there and was universally regarded as the best speaker of the entire process, and got a rousing ovation. I mean, it was something. And
he did something very smart, because he came up right away. He lowered the microphone. A very tall individual had come before him. He lowered the microphone like half a foot, acknowledged that was emasculating, then basically said, I don't do speeches, so I've written it. And then he just perfectly read this amazingly written thing that came
you
from
set
his
him
heart.
up with the self-deprecation.
Exactly.
And
Came
then
from
you
the heart.
kind of come in from the heart. That was good.
was that- he
We
had watched
mentioned him going back to
What about that, Gregg?
2014. I just wanted to. Maybe we are now reaching the point where the listeners don't care, but I just wanted him to get his flowers.
I was going to say, though, maybe, Gregg, because you do find yourself often in conflict, if there are things to take away from a Bumpurri in that spot, like how to get your point across without not wanting people to smack you on the side of the head.
Well, that's a different setting, making like a speech, and I've definitely had some bad ones of those too. So,
Hey, what if you could leave to a rousing
good
standing
ones.
ovation?
I've had good ones, bad ones. You know,
We're going to stick a pin in this because I know we got to settle something for Gregg a little later in the show. But do you want to get caught up on any news, or do we want to get right to it? Let me spin through real quick the news, and then
let's get to it. We're going to do some OTA roundup on Monday.
I think so,
if
too.
you want to do it as quickly as possible.
we'll do
Nothing
it real
major.
quick. I just want to. This is at one point there was a conversation about the NFL brother fraternity, and there was a term "old head" that's thrown around for the guys that are out of the league for an extended period of time, and the younger guys look at the older former players as old heads when they come with critical takes about how their game's not the way it used to be. But that's been going on forever.
So it was Gerald McCoy who came to guest speak about NFL players interacting with the media, and he clarified that an old head is if you played before the year 2000. Because LaDainian Tomlinson asked, like, who's an old head? And
Right.
LT is fine, but Kurt Warner, Michael Irvin, they're in a tough
They're
spot.
old heads.
right. LT came in right around 2000.
Yeah, I mean, he's on the fringe, but you wouldn't define him that way.
Anyway, LT, by the way, is a guy, and maybe because of his Jet ties and my favorite Jet game ever against the Pats in 2011, he was a prominent player. He's the guy that I kind of still get, like a guy that we work with, that I get a little like starstruck by. LT,
Yeah, it happens.
Irvin, Kurt Warner, Steve Smith, in a way. I want to get to know Steve Smith. That's why I'd love to have him on the show because he's just such an interesting, thoughtful, outspoken.
I think the
live wire of
interest in a
dude.
friendship would be equal from his standpoint.
One of Wes's favorite players.
I'm not talking about friendship.
Well, no, I'm saying I when
Although
Gregg was
that'd be
speaking
cool,
with
too.
him, I sensed actual.
He seems like a nice
authentic
guy.
interest,
Him and
you know?
Colleen are good buddies, so that's a good sign of a good man. And maybe Wes's all-time favorite player over the course of our podcast was Steve
Ice
Smith.
up, son. Time for news and notes presented by Upwork, where you can build the team that will build your business. Learn more from Upwork.com. All right, here we go. Couple things. And, jump in if you care. And if you don't, I'm going to keep moving. Minka Fitzpatrick signs a 4-year extension. He becomes the highest paid safety in NFL history. $36 million guaranteed at signing. Terry McLaurin, this is something kind of interesting. He's sitting out mandatory minicamp with the Commanders. Ron Rivera says the deal will get done. Speaking of Ron Rivera, did you know that he had a copy of the First Amendment, freedom of speech, sitting on his desk? And he said that he's read it over and over again when deciding what to do about Jack Del Rio, who made the comments on Twitter, I believe it was, or in the press conference, talking about all sorts of nonsense. And he said before he decided to fine Jack Del Rio, who, by the way, has since deleted his social media, he read it over and over again, the First Amendment. I just don't know what's going on in Washington.
The Commanders do things in their own way. I feel like there's a lot going on.
Have they started to take command, in your opinion? Where are we at the level?
Command of what?
Have they started? Are they getting ready to, maybe?
As we all know, excited to really go ahead and start to take command.
Where are we at? What's the percentage, would you say? 0 to 100. Like 100 is full command. 0 is you don't even know what command is.
2.8%.
Okay. Well, there's
Yeah,
only one
I'm
way
not
to
gonna
go.
go
really.
lower than that, but yeah, it's low. It's in the 10s.
For
Terry
what it's worth, Ron Rivera said he also had the second.
Wait, did you just start talking without your signature drop?
You know,
I feel like it's been established by this point. You're doing great. There you go.
He's been
How do they
down
know
here
how will they know who
housing
you
cocktails.
are? Yeah.
right. He said he also had the Second Amendment printed out on his desk to read over and over again for
Wait,
whatever
really?
reason.
The right to bear arms?
Well, first of all, the First
Oh, no.
Amendment.
What are we doing, Ron?
It's not that complicated. Read the first 5 words. You're pretty much good on the First Amendment. I feel
Raver,
like.
can you read both of the amendments at the end of the show?
Sure.
Just kidding. All right. Terry McLaurin's a really good player, and they should get a deal done with him. But I just don't, you don't know what's going on with that organization and whether
Kyle,
they have the right
they've
infrastructure
said
to get these
since
things done.
like a week into the offseason that it was their top priority. So I'd be
DK
surprised
Metcalf
if not.
also skipped their camp last week. Rodney Hudson was one for Arizona. There's a decent amount of players skipping.
And remember, Carson Wentz is there now, and as you know, as you just heard, you wanted him to be working with the star wide receiver of the team.
I'd also want to sign a contract before you spend a year with Carson Wentz.
All right. That's fair.
That's thought-provoking.
Very good, Mark. That's a great point, Mark.
Thank you.
I was legitimately saying it was a great point. Mark
is-
thinks we were making fun of him, but we
It is
weren't.
concerning.
Well, that's a great point, Mark.
When I say something that actually provokes your thought, that it must be verbalized. Like it's such a rare occurrence.
It's so condescending. It just stops the entire room. Good point,
That's a
Mark.
good. That actually was a good point too. That one
Well,
is
I'm
the
on a
one
roll.
You just made.
Well,
much
that's a great
better than
point.
the point DJ texted to Din. Odd fight.
Odd fight.
Give me a break.
I think Odd Fight was on point.
That's a fair.
Jerick McKinnon back to the Chiefs on a 1-year deal. So watch out, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. There are no more free passes for you, bud.
They got rid of Darrell Williams too. Had some moments for them.
Colts 4th-year safety Kerry Willis announces his retirement to go into the ministry. Kind of a cool move. Go to God, young man.
I mean, it's absolutely something that takes a lot of integrity and belief in what you're doing, and a surprise to the Colts. He's only been in the league 3 years, and he's been a starter the whole time and was going to be a starter this year. They have Julian Blackmon coming off a big injury too, so has some real-world repercussions for the Colts.
Absolutely. And that was News and Notes presented by Upwork, where you can build the team that will build your business. Learn more at Upwork.com.
That was the closest we've ever had to like a throwaway news segment, or just like a quick.
Just getting
news
caught up.
Here's another corpo speak that that news segment would not qualify. Did you guys hear that the live games that they're going to put on the new NFL Plus
app,
is the hero content? Which I don't know. That's kind of our thing. We are the hero content.
Well,
we have,
unless we. That is something we should probably trademark.
Not in their eyes, potentially.
right. And they kept saying that, like, well, we're gonna focus on the hero content. And I'm just sitting there being like, we're right here. I'm here. We are the hero.
It does remind me that it's been a while. I'm a little disappointed since I got a tweet like, "How dare you refer to yourselves as heroes when the real heroes are out there on the battlefield protecting your First and Second Amendment rights?" Like, all right, back off.
That's fair.
Just having
Because
fun.
that is our
We're just
point of
having
view.
fun.
That is the stance we take.
It's been a while. I'm just saying it's been a little bit since I got that tweet. And, okay, before we talk with Kyle Brandt, let's share an update. The Dalton scale, which anybody who checked out that episode, thank you very much. We all, Patrick Claybon included, the Ed McMahon to Michael Irvin's Johnny Carson.
I wish I had seen all that. That
was
sounds fun.
They're doing the laugh. They were
I
doing like
missed all that.
handshakes, and it was like awesome. It was like, wow, look at Claybon.
You do not want to be in the front row for this. Colleen had the worst possible seat, front row middle.
Yeah, it's toughy.
I was front row, and you miss a lot.
So the four of us with Patrick talked Dalton scale. Who is the new Prime Meridian? We each nominated a player, and then we put it to a vote. And Justin, we got over 5,000 votes on Reddit and Instagram. You want to share the results?
Yes. So Kirk Cousins was the runaway winner with over 50%.
Whose nomination was that?
That was Marc's.
That was Marc's nomination.
I just don't believe it. I understand
Well,
why.
I think the public believes it.
I know, but the public is often wrong.
And this did not incorporate the hundreds, literally hundreds of comments received on Twitter and Instagram with people just like spouting off their choice.
They probably voted though too.
They may have, but a lot of people also took issue with like one or two names on the list where it's like, just chill out, like if you
Don't worry about the list. It wasn't
Yeah.
really about the list, like Patrick Mahomes is behind Josh Allen or whatever. Don't worry about that. That's not what this exercise was about.
God forbid they lack context as
Claybon explained on the last episode lists.
yeah.
Yeah. And his nomination, Ryan Tannehill, came in second, 28.5%.
I could live with that.
Winston, who Gregg nominated, 11.3%.
I'm gonna take
Ouch.
third as a victory because you guys all dismissed it so much that at least I was ahead of one of you guys'
Yes,
choice.
And Matt Ryan, only 9.5%. And I think people took
Just thought he was too good.
issue with the fact that he doesn't reflect Andy Dalton as much because he had such a high peak and now he's coming down, whereas
Yeah, I
Dalton
don't-
was kind of steadily
think-
average.
I
That's
think
sort of not what it's
I
about.
think it's a fundamental disconnect what the exercise is about, because I'm not saying that Matt Ryan was anything like Andy Dalton. He was a All-Pro. He was an MVP. He should have won a Super Bowl. But I'm only talking about the here and now. So I'm not factoring anything else than who Matt Ryan is now
I could see
Okay.
though. I could see why.
But people struggled
on
with
a
that-
list
with the
because
name.
I think part of it is Andy Dalton.
But I also think people think Matt Ryan's too good still.
Andy
That's
Dalton,
probably the main
Andy
reason.
Dalton was the Dalton scale his entire career.
Right.
Matt Ryan was an MVP candidate 4 years ago. I mean, he was a fantastic player that went to a Super Bowl. So it kind of I think if you're just looking at the tabulations,
Just
it's like it
I
defies
know
the concept.
numbers, especially with this particular player, but I get hung up on the last 2 seasons. Kirk Cousins has 70 touchdowns and,
Okay,
10,
but-
and 15 interceptions, and it's like that's the Prime Meridian.
But he's also the picture of frustration,
Right.
in a way that we can't quite
I get
describe.
that.
You know,
I get that.
I can be swayed on some things, and the way that the listeners voted and the way Marc put the case, and the more that I thought about it, he does embody the Dalton scale in some way. And the more I thought about it, there's more good quarterbacks now, I think, than back then. So maybe that's a little part of the Dalton scale, too, that, yes, Cousins has those great numbers, but where did you end up ranking him? Like 14, 15. That's where Dalton used to be back in the day. And, like, it's hard. You're now
Dalton
the
moved
bar,
up and down.
Absolutely,
on the
but the
list.
bar is sort of higher of what the middle is of where you need a new guy. And I think the listeners kind of convinced me that Cousins makes total sense right now, and he's going to ease into that for the next few years possibly.
I stand by it. I think give me a year or two, and Cousins has to come down a little bit. But
I stand by Jameis, too,
Cousins
by the
is
way.
the most.
I stand
Jameis,
by it.
I don't know about the Jameis one.
We'll see.
You're just high on Jameis for some reason. You always have been.
I don't think that's that high, though. The point is it's right in the middle.
Yeah, but even
You
putting
need-
him in this
I'm saying
conversation
I'm
is
saying
lifting him up.
You need a new one if you've got
if
him.
we had to meet in the middle, I think Tannehill was a place we were willing to go.
What, he came in second?
Yes,
Yep.
I think we were willing to go there as a
Of
group.
all the men in the NFL to lift up by choice, you often go back to Jameis Winston. Why?
I'm not lifting him up, but he has some nice quarterbacking skills. That's
when he's
right
on
in
the
middle.
field.
Okay.
Right in the middle.
All right, let's take a break, and when we get back, one of my favorite people in NFL media, Mr. Kyle Brandt. All right, time to welcome a great man, a champion in the realm of sports media. I mean,
Yes.
a man has a trophy, and it is a sports Emmy for his work with the rest of the team at Good Morning Football. Now he rejoins us on the Around the NFL podcast. What's up, Kyle Brandt?
Hello, my friends. Thrilled to be here, specifically here geographically where we're
Yes.
sitting right now. This is like when the Brady Bunch goes to Hawaii, like they do those special episodes. I remember the Seavers went to Hawaii once and Growing Pains,
Right.
and this is the heroes. Go to California out on the beach. You look great.
Yeah,
I
we-
feel great.
You
Great to be
feel
here.
like a natural here. I don't think we've ever done a podcast with you in person unless I'm just like misremembering.
No.
But you have big
Don't think
shoes
so
to
either.
fill because, your co-host Pete Traeger was here last year, I believe.
Was
or the
he?
last time we did it in person. And he awkwardly held a microphone wrapped up with a towel the whole
stick
time.
mic,
and we
yeah.
were
Why?
We
And
were
I still
confused by
wonder
it.
about
Well,
it.
We
he
don't
was
know
under the
why.
hot burning sun.
So
as
were
well.
we.
So
Oh,
this
yeah.
we're in a nice shaded area
This
this
is-
time,
this is
thanks to
glorious.
our
This is
production
Perfect.
team.
And then-
yeah, we have the Pacific Ocean over our
It's
shoulders
beautiful
here.
here at the Los Santa Monica resort or hotel. Is it a resort? Doesn't matter. Kyle,
Yeah.
when Traeger was here,
Uh-huh.
Marc awkwardly asked Traeger who he respected the most, and then Traeger gave an honest answer and said Gregg. And it was highly
Did he have any rationale?
controversial.
Yeah, well, there was
Everyone was a little surprised by it.
there was
but-
no irony to it, and he did have a rationale. I think he basically just explained that Gregg and Gregg's football past allowed that respect to be greater than what he felt for
Right. So
the rest of us.
A
We
very
were in New
easy
York at the
non-answer,
same
though.
time, like
Oh, okay.
in the aughts, so
Right.
that there
But
was something there.
There was a very easy non-answer to give there. He chose to give the answer. Now, we settled that beef with him. Now there's another one to settle.
Okay.
Do you remember when you were down under for a project you were working on, a massive NFL fan, also a fan of your show, GMFB, ATN,
Yeah.
approached you. He was an actor, and you told the whole story on television. And then when you referenced our show.
What happened? I'm nervous,
This
Dan.
is-
What are you doing?
This is
Yeah,
how
you'll
you
find out.
This is how
Oh,
you
no.
described it.
Dan, Gregg, all the guys.
And you need to know, and I know you and Marc know each other
Marc, that
professionally
sucks.
It's okay.
more than personally at this stage, that's something that's stuck with Marc for easily, to
It
this
threw
day.
me for a loop. Because it's not as if it's such a large ensemble that it'd be hard to remember the other guy. But it sticks with me still. But I am a person who believes in ironing out these things, and I really feel nothing but good feelings for you.
You don't think you felt? Well, how did I say it? And all the guys.
Yeah, you're just like, oh yeah, ATN, Dan, Gregg, all
all
the
the
guys.
guys.
Well, let's hear it again, just in
do
case.
it.
Dan, Gregg, all the guys.
Damn, that's a tough beat. It really, I feel
bad beat.
the second you were teeing it up, Dan, I knew where this was going. It was only a matter of which name did I leave out. You know, I'm going to immediately relate. A couple Super Bowls ago, when it was Bucks versus Chiefs, Burleson was doing the thing where he was interviewing like Brady and Mahomes, and like before the game. And Brady at the end made this nice comment. It's like, hey, Nate, I love the show that you guys do. I love, you and Peter and Kay, like just a great show. And so I relate and I empathize. And like, I took that one right between the eyes from Brady.
Yeah.
You just had to take it from me in Australia, probably like hungover or something. But I still apologize.
I accept your apology, and it's
Sucks.
what I like about this is that I've now had a minor rift with 2 members of Good Morning Football, and then we solved it and got out of it too.
Well, you know what? There's only 2 left, so you got the full set, guys. That's it. You have the complete box set.
And I like to be a mediator. I'm efforting right now here at the Los Santa Monica to get Gregg Rosenthal and Ian Rapoport together to work out some differences they're dealing with right now. But I feel like this one is squashed, and we're good, so we can move
What
forward.
differences do you guys have that you're the same person? Like, there's an amazing
now
likeness
we have
between
beef
the
too. That was more problematic than anything that you said about Marc. But we awkwardly started to bridge that gap at a pre-mixer that Dan and Marc were too big to even show up to.
Last night. Yeah. That was a fun pre-mixer, too.
Yeah.
You guys missed out.
We're here. We're here at this event.
It's a long 2 days.
All right,
It is a long 2 days.
And before we get, I have a couple questions, Kyle. We don't have a lot of time. We're in the middle of this talent summit, and we were told
We're making you work at your lunch break. Everyone else wants to just
if he wasn't if he was at the lunch right now, and Kyle, tell me if I'm wrong, you'd be subjected to a lot of awkward small talk with a bunch of people. Like me personally, this makes it even better because now I don't have to do things like that make me uncomfortable. Maybe Kyle, you're more an extrovert, perhaps. But
no, you're all over it. If I was not here, I'd be sitting here having Scott Hansen ask me how my kids are, which I respect, Scott. It's really nice, but like here we're making some content.
Oh, Scott, who tried to cut us in line today when they're very nice. Let's a lot of beefs to be
the buffet line.
It was not the buffet line. It was they're giving us suits this year. I think. Signed this contract, and now they're like,
this is not going to drum up a ton of sympathy with the listeners, but we're getting very expensive free suits from the NFL.
Custom-made suits.
We're scheduled for 8:15, right?
Yeah.
Me and Gregg right on time. Marc, not your typical way. Roll in with your aviators on at 8:35. Hansen rolls in close to 8:40, and he tries to get in front of us. And Gregg, to your credit, you gave it to him a little bit.
Did you? Yeah, I was just saying you are not cutting in front of us.
Right.
And I maybe gave it to him a little too much. Like I was like, if you were
As is your way.
if you were a little less condescending when you came in here, then maybe we would have allowed it.
Those are exact words from Gregg.
Is that right?
I must tell you one nice thing he did because I'm wearing a sports coat as you, Dan. We had to take this one off to get fitted by a very elegant clothing person.
He's a fancy man.
And Scott nicely hung up this jacket I'm wearing on a hanger and smoothed it out, so he's not a total villainous individual.
He's a very nice man, but he tried to say like he had some appointment or something like that. I was like, no way are you big timing us. We're all here for the same thing. Like we would have been there 10, 15
Scott
more
also
minutes.
said he's taking a flight out of the country, and he has all of our episodes queued up for the flight, which if it's true, wow. And he's going to get to this, and then we're going to have beef with Scott. But let's get back on track.
Hi, Scott.
So, Kyle,
Yeah.
Again, congratulations on the Emmy. I introduced you as a champion. When you're at the event and they announced Good Morning Football, and this was kind of like you weren't the Susan Lucci of the category, if anyone gets that reference. But for many years, that was the territory of PTI, I believe.
Yeah.
So when you guys finally get over the hump and win it, do you feel like you won the Super Bowl in a way? Take us through it all.
Yeah, listen, you go to the sports Emmys, and people call them the sports Emmys, sort of to separate them from the real Emmys. And people say it's political and it's overdone, and I don't care. It was awesome. We got a big-ass trophy. And if you know the actual Emmy trophy, it is ridiculously over the top. It is like an angel holding up the earth. It's so opulent. There's no subtlety to the Emmy trophy. So I got that. And you get nominated. And like, all right, so it's PTI, just like seminal program we all grew up watching. Sure. Sports Center, Dan Patrick, Rich Eisen, and it was Bomani Jones up there, who Bomani is just characteristically kind of underspoken. It's what he does, and so he just pulls it out and says, Good morning, football. And I lost my mind. Peter and I actually screamed in the audience. We're sitting right behind Mike Tirico, who would go on to win for like best host or something really prestigious. It was unbelievably cool. And
Very cool.
I remember having like if we lose again, this would be our third time, not like have a cool losing face. Like sometimes these guys go crazy. I remember when Burt Reynolds lost for Boogie Nights, he lost to Robin Williams, and he was clearly pissed off. The most famous one is Bill Murray for Lost in Translation. Like had this terribly like a sour face because he lost, and I'm like, just have a cool face, like just be like, yeah,
They
great
have this
job.
You know what?
Yeah.
Sometimes they are too happy. Like it's a little too much. Like
The
where
Meryl
they
Streep,
go crazy for the
Right.
person
They
that once, and then
overcompensate,
it's too much. We've been in similar situations though, Kyle. We know that feeling.
Yes.
When the 2013 Stitcher Award
Sure.
for Best New Podcast was stolen by our producer after she had it delivered directly to her house after she had already left the company. That was like a similar type of vibe that we felt.
That was
in that
kind of
moment.
unique, though, because we got the experience of winning and losing at the same time.
I mean, we grieved together as a group through that, and but it still stings.
I can tell it stings, and you know what doesn't
Haven't
sting
won
now?
anything since.
It's fine. You will. Maybe for this episode. We got the sweet vindication. My biggest takeaway from the Emmy is that finally, once we cut the dead wood of Nate Burleson, we were able to win. So, like, 2 nominations with Nate, no wins. Nate leaves, immediate win. And so I don't think that's a coincidence. And we're a quarter of the way to EGOTs, me and Schrager. The Tony is going to be next.
All right. There you go. Now, I want to play another thing here.
What do you got
But,
now?
Of course,
Wow.
Kyle stole the draft with his ramp up and pump up speech about the Buffalo Bills. Here's a little portion of it.
In my hands, I hold the most important pick of this entire round because this pick is the only pick who will win the Super Bowl in his rookie year.
And Kyle, now
Yeah.
it did cross my mind. And again, we sung your praises on the show when this happened
Thanks.
too, because it was really fun and well done, and the ramp up to get to the location, just masterfully played, sir. But I did think to myself, when you took the bite of the chicken wing at the very end, if that got caught in the gullet and you went down and you didn't come back up, we've talked about this, Gregg, with other things, that what would be the appropriate amount of time that would pass before people would kind of be able to make fun of how we lost Kyle.
Oh, that was it for him.
Yeah.
If I died on stage right there?
Yeah, choking on a chicken wing is part of the Bills bit.
You know what I say? William Wallace, every man dies, not every man really lives.
Right.
If that's how I'm going to go, I'll go down in my Zubas on stage. That's fine.
Right. So that's like the Saturday. That's Saturday, right? Or that was Friday.
That was Friday night,
I
second
feel like
and
by
third round.
Monday night's Total Access, that's given enough time. Like
Right.
C block, just have a little fun.
That
with
feels appropriate.
Right. Willie and Carr just chopping it up a little bit.
Well, we've often asked if we were go down in a plane crash.
Right.
Yeah.
What block of Total Access would we even be? Would they mention that,
This
or would
was
it just be?
This
Would
was
it be
a
the?
Damashek bit, yeah.
Or would it be the crawl underneath? Maybe would it be mentioned?
We're in the E block, I think.
But if you died announcing Baylor linebacker Terrell Bernard, like that's how you went down.
Yeah.
I believe
It's a national story.
It is.
Yeah.
I want segments done on it. I want Good Morning Football to do in or out Kyle's death. Did we like it? How did he play it? I want to do a breakdown. I want to do Peter can do angry deaths in my homage with a scepter. Please make fun of me if that ever happens
Like
again.
J.J. Redick is, making fun of Stephen A. for being insensitive about it. The whole thing would be amazing.
Now, and let's talk about it, because you do what you guys do for GMFB. Like, we go through the off season, but we don't do 5 days a week. We don't do 3-hour shows like you guys do. And I'm curious, because you're a Chicago guy, and yet you've kind of gravitated towards the Bills. How did that happen, first of all? Is that just from kind of falling for the team as part of the NFL Network machine, or how did you become a Bills guy? How did that transition?
Just organically. Like you talk so much about the teams for so many shows over so many hours. It was a couple of years ago, and I started getting worked up, and I was hyping the Bills, and I liked them, and I was teeing into all those people not believing in them. And so you do some sort of rant, and then people online like it, and they're like, do another one, and then they win, and then the team's like, will you do one officially for us? And I said, sure. And so everyone will be like, dude, like I had no idea you were from Buffalo. And I'm like, not only am I not from Buffalo, I have never been to Buffalo in my life. I've never visited the city at the time. And then it just kind of snowballs. And so now people are like, oh, so you're a Bills fan. I'm like, I'm not a Bills fan. I don't care if they lose. I'm an enthusiast for the team. I'm not a Bears fan either. You guys can just divide that, right? As people in the media,
Sure.
like you like certain teams, sure, but like it's not like you're an 8-year-old with a hot dog in the stands and you're going to cry if they lose. I'm not a Bills fan.
They are like that.
No,
Dan
we're
and
raging,
Marc.
raging
Dan and
professionals. So.
I don't know.
I agree. I think that's a fun and healthy way to work in the NFL too. Like I think Wes had that. As well. It's how the team of the Around the NFL podcast first came up. Is like we really liked that 2013 Panthers team, or I don't remember which it was. It was one of the
Cam Newton
teams.
Panthers team?
Yeah, it was one of the Cam Newton teams, and we sort of like organically you wait and see which team is kind of floating your boat that season, and then you jump on board and you have four. You have 4 or 5 of those because you like
Greg,
sports,
you're right.
you
You're
like
absolutely right.
football, and they're attracted to you, and you're going to be at work Sunday. It makes that Sunday more fun, and it doesn't have to be as heavy either. You don't have to be like crushed when they lose.
Let's be real though. It would never. The team would never be picked unless Wes was 100% behind it. It was essentially the team of Westio.
Right, and also Gregg using the terminology or using the phrase "fun and healthy way." Like, don't be condescending. Just because Marc and I ride or die with our teams, or
That's
were
fair.
until something happened.
I just
with a
mean
quarterback.
you can handle it better emotionally, but
I don't cry.
There's moments.
Yeah, I don't cry.
It was close after the Week 17 Jets loss in 2015, and we had to do a show afterwards. Dan was not.
That was the greatest act of professionalism that's ever been seen on the program.
Are you on any text threads with Bills players? Are the players themselves aware of your not fandom but enthusiasm?
I DM just a little bit with Josh Allen, a
Okay.
little bit.
There
Like
we
we've met a couple times, we've had a couple conversations. So like I met Josh Allen's father in the airport, Joel Allen, who, as you know, is a farmer from Firebaugh, California. Like that is a man.
That's
right?
a great name.
Big ass handshake, super nice to meet you. Canned ham, Mark McGuire forearms, like just exactly like you would think. So I know them just a little bit, but other than that, like no, it's not really like
One
that.
little follow-up: Are the Allens, excuse me, as impressed with your summertime bod as I am? You're looking very sharp. I mean, you've been on this mission for a while, but it's an impressive physique.
I'm surprised it took you so long to get to this one.
Thank you for saying that. Thank you
I
very
noticed
much.
he has notes, and the first
Does it
note
say-
is Kyle's body. He wrote it down like he wasn't going to remember.
say it.
During
I
the
just
media
saw it.
summit.
It says Kyle's body.
Kyle's body,
Do you
right?
think you could put your signature on that? Give him an
We
autograph.
should put that out on
Happy to,
Instagram.
yes.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Marc. Thank you. Thank you. I'm sure you have other better things to talk about than my body.
Not
that's
really. That's
getting
the
out of-
main reason we had you here.
Wait, as a Bills fan, first of all, who's that second-round pick that you announced? It's
Terrell
cool.
Bernard.
It's going to be cool you're kind of attached to him
It's unbelievably
throughout his
cool.
career. And it's good that you didn't die because then he would have that sort of hanging on him, like if his career didn't go, like the whole
Right.
thing.
Sure.
He would have to do it for you. So that's good. You guys will be connected. Do you think, though, that this offseason, them sort of being the team, and I don't push back against this conventional wisdom that they are kind of the team going into the season. They should have won the Super Bowl last year.
Yeah.
I think if you replayed how it went, they to me were the best team at the end. It just didn't work out that way. Now they're the favorite. Like their fans get upset if there's like a list where they're not number one.
Yes, correct.
Or if their quarterback or their defense is even ranked number 3. It's a lot. And just knowing how the NFL works, it just even looking at the Bills last year, the expectations were sky high. And the offense coming into it didn't quite perform at first. Is there any concern in you looking at this team kind of going into the season of, you kind of have to handle the expectations as the heavyweights, but you actually haven't won in anything yet? It's one of the tougher spots to be. It's almost being like a Super Bowl runner-up.
Yeah, Greg, it's terrifying. Are you kidding me? The first game of the season is 5 miles from here against the Rams. They could easily lose that game, and then the sky is falling already. And it's like I'm trying to think of a team like that had just never really won anything and that have expectations this high. Like if they get to the title game this year and like lose on a last-second field goal, it's an amazing season. That is a bitter, soul-crushing loss and a terrible, wasted season in the eyes of the Bills fans. So yeah, like they're loaded, and we all agree that they're loaded as hell. But if I did a quarterback ranking the other day because June, and I had Rodgers 1 and Allen 2nd. Like they're like, I guess you're off the bandwagon. You're out. I'm like, oh, hold on a second. I got him above Mahomes, above Brady. Just because he's second, they were furious. So like the sensitivity is going to be really fun to play with because if they start out like 3-2, fine. Disaster. Like the world is burning.
And the pressure would just build on them.
They don't want to hear it, but there's like just statistically, there's probably like a 30% chance they don't win the division either. That they're playing a road game to start the playoffs.
Well, everything went so right the last 2 years.
Just because that's how the NFL is. Like, I think they are the best team. Like, they would be my pick to win the Super Bowl. I'm not really even pushing
That's
against
why they're number one in the power rankings.
But that's just sort of that's just how the NFL goes.
I know.
They were ranked 10th in DVOA last year, which people kind of forget about because how awesome they closed and how Allen was just unstoppable in the playoffs. But that is the one thing that would be on my radar is Ken Dorsey taking over Brian Daboll.
Sure.
What happens there? Because there were, if you really want to drill in on their season last year, and I know you were, that they really struggled in points last year with Daboll. So now another year, the division should be better. It's not a slam dunk. So it's going to be maybe not to get down on the Bills at all. But if you're a Bills fan, this season maybe won't be as quote-unquote fun as the last couple because the expectations are so high that you're just expected to be back at the game you got eliminated at last year. But you got to win that game.
Yeah.
And the one after it.
How about when Josh Allen met Josh Allen? Can't have that happen
That
again.
was kind of cool. Yeah, the Jaguar thing, right? Yeah.
What a moment.
Yeah, they did have a moment. The thing that I think my bottom line about the Bills in the offseason is like, if they did not add Von Miller, if they did not draft any players, I still think they're going to be the Super Bowl favorite. I still think they were. Like,
I agree.
Those things were all I'm rich, screw it purchases. Like someone who like is just going to get heated floors in their bathroom because they can afford to. Like, you don't need to get Von Miller, but we're going to do it anyway. Also, we're going to draft a punter because he's the best punter anyone's seen in 20. Like, it's full on, like,
it's
1%er. I'm going to get a walk-in humidor because I don't know what to do with my money, so I'll buy stupid stuff that I don't need. They're that loaded.
They something changed in their season about halftime of Tampa. Before that,
oh my God, I know
the offense really wasn't the Bills' offense that we kind of remember it as. And my big thing with them that I'm worried about is whenever you go into a season, it's like everything is great except for the offensive line. It's like, well, that's a problem. And to me, like on paper, they're probably average, and there's a scenario where they're significantly below average offensive line, and that just like. It's not going to torpedo your season, but then you're just one of like 7 AFC teams that has a chance. That seems more realistic.
Finally, before we say goodbye, Kyle, and thank you again for the time. You're a pop culture dude.
Okay.
You are. You just did a Hard to Kill Seagal retrospective with Simmons, which I can't wait to listen to. Football movies. Football movies. Okay. Well, we got to get a good one in there. I feel like it's been a while.
It has.
The last one, I think it's telling that Draft Day, which was, all due respect, Marc,
that is
piece of shit.
It is a C, solid C.
I think
it gets brought up all the time.
It was full of heart from start to finish.
Forget that.
Kyle doesn't know this, and maybe our new listeners don't, that they showed it to us, and they asked people from the NFL for
I was going to gloss over it, Marc, but now we're in
written content. But Kyle needs to know
Wait,
this.
is this true? You guys were consultants?
No.
We went to a screening for NFL media employees in 2013 or whatever when the movie came out.
Yeah.
And then they asked, hey, if you want to like give us some type of write-up, we might use you in the promotion, and they really used Marc.
And they used his quote, full of heart from start to finish.
I wrote a long, chunky
of their advertisement.
It was a long, chunky paragraph where I tried to balance the positive aspects of the film and its shortcomings. But at some point, they just grab what they want. And I put full of heart from start to finish, and that gets at the pull quote on like 18
That's
posters.
just the kind of quote that they like. They do. They like the full of heart from start to finish. That's
it's one of my favorite moments
quote.
in our podcast history.
Yeah.
It's a great premise for a movie that they didn't quite land. What about the idea, what if we get behind it as producers or some way, and we reboot it? And we try again Draft Day?
Draft Day.
Or original IP. Any ideas that you had that we could kind of spitball?
Well, the Draft Day thing, the first question you have to answer is, who's the team going to be? Like, who's that featured team? Like,
it originally was the Bills.
Is
and
that
then
true?
they rewrote it for the Browns because of, I think, tax breaks or something where they could film it.
Well, listen, I'm looking in your direction in terms of the teams that they would need to focus on. And I think you have to have a New York-based team, and I think it has to be the Jets. And I think it's immediately got some edge.
Yeah.
I think you redo it, or even there's a sequel, or there's something. But the draft is always an amazing theater. Maybe you need more people in this scene where somebody comes out and chokes on a chicken wing and dies at the end of it, and then everyone just makes fun of him. Someone can play him, like Jeremy Renner or something.
Right.
I don't
Frank
know who that
Langella.
would be. Frank Langella would be perfect. Ellen Burstyn. Isn't that Costner's mom in that movie?
Yeah, we do. It's like a spin-off, like a Better Call Saul with Jennifer Garner's character as a cap analytics expert. We just really dig it deeper on her arc.
That's fine.
Nice
just
three-hour think piece.
I feel like the features have suffered because the documentaries have been so good. I love that movie Undefeated, which is on Netflix, but I remember
Is that
seeing
J.K. Simmons one?
No, it's a documentary about like a high school team. And I just always end up loving those. Last Chance U is great, and to me, the features never match that sort of drama. We haven't had it in a minute.
It's been a while.
We'll work on it.
Okay.
We're going to work on it, Kyle. Nothing you have to work on, at least in the gym, according to Marc.
Hey now, Kyle's body. It says it right there on the notes.
Here.
Thank you you very much,
Kyle Brandt. Thank you very much, buddy, and maybe we'll have a cocktail a little later.
Listen, Dan, Gregg, guys, thank you for having me very much. It's always a pleasure.
We're back in a bad place.
All right, there goes Kyle Brandt. That was awesome. Also awesome. Late in the seminar on Wednesday, they brought out 2 guest speakers as a part of the podcast segment.
Podcast Power Hour.
Podcast Power Hour. We were not asked to come.
I
up
thought
on
it
the
was going to
stage,
be about our podcast, and it wasn't mentioned once.
which was fine.
Yes,
Again, I
right.
just kind of like to lay low for this event. But 2 ladies that have successfully launched a show called 90210 Oh My God, Tori Spelling and Jenny Garth. The actresses.
I mean, OMG to be the official name.
Oh, is that what it was? Sorry. They came out, and then, of course, after when the Q&A opened up to that, Kyle, a noted pop culture buff, especially in that era, rose his hand and asked a very direct question about a specific plot line from an episode from 1993.
When I think also
It's a great moment. And they had no recollection of what he was talking about.
But they were
I
Tori
enjoyed it.
Spelling and Jenny Garth, who, if you're a certain age, are iconic. Jenny Garth, especially
Right.
to some of us. Both were quite taken aback by Kyle Brandt and noted his cuteness multiple times.
Wow.
Who did?
I don't
On
remember
stage?
that at
Yeah.
all. Marc's projecting.
What are you talking about? They never said anything about
They
his...
absolutely talked about the fact that he was.
They literally, at one point, she called him adorable, which I actually took.
Well, that's what I'm referring
and
to,
all the
adorable.
players, the D'Angelo
Well, he
and
is.
LaDainian Tomlinson, who we were sitting next to, took it in the way I did, which is like, it was a nice pat on the head of like, oh, aren't you an adorable little fan? And if anything, I don't think it
know.
was
I
a
thought
good moment.
I thought that they thought he tried very hard with his
Yeah.
comment. I don't mean that in a negative way, but he was a subject matter expert. I'm not surprised he was, and I think they were flattered by it.
It was an interesting choice, though, because I told Emeka, my wife, last night about it, and I mentioned to her how at least half the people in the room had no idea who they were because they were too, the people in the room, like a Graver, if he had been, too young. They have no clue. And that shocked Emma because she was like, what?
That
How would
occurred to
they
me
not,
as well.
How would they not know them? And I was like, if you're like 38 or under, you probably do
Especially
not know
Garth.
them.
I think Spelling, with her reality show, is a little more on the
As a
radar.
1980 baby, I'll give you my my Babe Mount Rushmore from 1991, and I'll tell you, Jenny Garth was on that.
Absolutely.
On that side of that mountain, in the Abe Lincoln spot. Abe was on Mount Rushmore, right?
Abe
believe
famously,
Anybody know?
Don't ask me open-ended questions.
George Washington,
Abe,
Thomas Jefferson.
Abe, though, famously
Roosevelt, I
not
think,
a
is in
looker.
there.
A gigantic
Rosie?
man, but kind of not a looker. George Washington would have been
Abe's
a
up
better example of like a handsome,
I think
striking
Abe
man.
Lincoln was kind of sneaky hot.
And
Tall,
also, I
projected
think he'd
leadership and
get
confidence.
better
It's a hot-
looking at it the more you
it's a
knew
hot
him because
take.
of his wisdom
Anyway,
and his,
certainly.
his oratory
Here's
skills.
the
Weird
We
beard.
got to get Ian over here, but Jenny Garth, Kathy Ireland,
No arguments.
Vanessa Williams.
Mm.
Saved
Go
it.
with that.
Didn't save the best for last. The best for last for me is Tiffany Amber Thiessen, Kelly
Okay.
Kapowski, and Tori Spelling. I know her more.
Clever,
from-
save the best for last. Play on words
Yeah,
there.
thank
That
you.
was pretty good.
Saved by the Bell. She played Violet, the nerd, in a recurring role, Screech's girlfriend. I wanted to ask about that, but then Kyle sucked up all the oxygen with his, and I said, well, you can't double down because then you're kind of, again, asking them to go down a memory wormhole that they have no interest in going down. But I would have had a Saved by the Bell Violet
You're a true
question.
pro. You're a true
Yeah.
pro. You understood the room.
Right. All right. Understanding the room, Gregg. That is sometimes something that I feel like you battle with. Certainly today with the conversation with management.
I mean, I understood it. I knew exactly what I was getting into. I don't give a, I wanted them to feel me. You
are the bad boy of NFL media. But what happens when you come and clash with one of the more visible members of NFL media, the newsbreaker, Ian Rapoport, drama between the two men, and here is the conversation that we had, Ian, Gregg, Marc, and myself. All right, as promised, I sometimes I'm the target of some good-natured ribbing about giving myself too many nicknames. But I'll risk it again and let you know there's another nickname that I want to bring to the forefront.
All right.
The Peacemaker.
Oh, my gosh.
And sitting now to my right.
Of all people, I don't know if that's.
That does not sound
more like
right.
It's not true.
Stirrer. Sorry,
let's
Gregg.
try
You're
to
allowed
stay
to curse
focused.
on here?
No, but I'm just giving Gregg.
Sitting to my right is a longtime friend, known him for over 20 years. And sitting to my left is a work colleague that I've known for 10 and worked so closely with.
Yeah.
So to see a
do we have beef now? You just called him a friend, and I'm a work colleague.
That's just called reality. Go ahead.
To see the friendship dissolve between Gregg Rosenthal and Ian Rapoport, it's been difficult. So now we've brought them together, Marc, to try to iron things out. Now the Peacemaker is going to back out of the way. And, Marc, if you want to jump in and help mediate in your own way, that's great.
Well, I think it's primarily the role of these two individuals to heal whatever's going on. I'm not sure that's a home run that's going to happen here because, Ian is Ian, but Gregg is one of the more hyper-contrarians on the earth. So where is this going to go?
Ian is Ian felt like an insult.
Well,
Yeah.
no, I actually just put nothing. I'm
trouble.
not claiming to know your personality in depth, but
on
I
one
do know
hand,
Gregg's.
that this is a manufactured joke, to use a popular phrase on this podcast. But on the other hand, I have people within the company coming up to me at this meeting and saying like, "Oh, what's your beef with Ian here?" So this thing that you've started, that in terms
I didn't start
in terms
anything.
of making it public, you're also trying to bring together. But I will mention a situation last night. It was funny because I saw Ian, and we're not the type to, I think, take things too personally.
Sure.
And Ian,
Generally,
I
that's
come
true.
over to a group which has some high-powered executives in this little group last night. One at the NFL, one outside the NFL, a shadowy league figure there, and I assume we're going to ignore whatever's going on here, Ian and I. But the first thing Ian does is just like give me a big scowl face and like to make everyone sure. I was just like, oh, me and Ian are in a fight. We're in a cold war.
You could have used the Peacemaker, and that's
I was like, this was not the spot to do it. I don't think you really want to go through it in front of these people.
I didn't want to go through it, but you can't ignore something like
Okay,
that. It's
exactly.
like, it's like if you're on
You
air
don't
and
have to
do
make
something,
like a cartoonish mad face either.
That was my regular face.
Yeah.
But
That's resting Ian face.
Yeah, resting Ian face. No, it's like if you do something dumb on TV, like the only way to get past it is to acknowledge it.
Yes,
like,
that's
I
fair.
like to acknowledge this Cold War that is happening. And for people who don't know, Gregg and I have been friendly. Probably friendly. I've never been over to your house, so we can't say we're friends, but we've been friendly for a long time. He will often text me asking me for information, and I will text him my various observations that go on this podcast, which I will listen to infrequently, and other things.
I love this so much.
And
Feels like a one-sided relationship.
No,
This is
no.
Dad's favorite moment.
I would
Peacemaker's
say-
enjoying it.
Yep. And then I saw a tweet and I'm not going to talk about the topic of the tweet,
Well, we have to. What are you talking about?
but it was it was discussing the coverage of Deshaun Watson. It was lumping all of the national reporters in together, as if all of us were on the same page in ignoring or deciding that the Deshaun Watson coverage would be the same. And I believe what Gregg was upset with mostly was we were talking about the football part of it, right? And you felt we were talking too much about the football part of it?
I think that the way that it was covered throughout the process was, yes, essentially assisting Deshaun Watson's agent in getting that trade and getting that contract. Like, that part of my feeling about it didn't change, that the way the media, and you're just part of that, And we had a long conversation on the day of the Watson press conference, because that day I thought was an important day, because it was like the local reporters got in and I think got to ask the types of questions that the national reporters won't, because I think ultimately they had relationships that they were trying to protect that got a higher importance in the reporting on our network and on ESPN and on Fox and wherever else than just actually reporting what was going on here.
See, I don't think that's true. But first of all, the reason the local reporters got to ask Deshaun Watson all these questions, and they did it again the other day at minicamp, is because they were literally there. So I have met Deshaun Watson a couple of times. I do not know him well. I don't have the kind of audience with him where I could ask him the kind of questions that you would at a press conference. What I do know is that we have, and I believe I have, and Pelissero has, and Garofalo has, covered it, all of it. So when some of the accusers had a press conference kind of early on in this, I can't remember when that was, but it was
last year. It was like August or
it was
October. Or something.
Yeah, it was kind of when this had really started. We covered that. When there was a new lawsuit, we often covered that. I would not say that we covered every single detail because there's been so many details, but we have covered the bad, and then we have covered, there's not been a lot of good, but then we've covered the football. And this was a time to cover the football because he had just been traded. It was all about the trade, what it means for the football team, his contract, what that meant. And just because we were covering the football part of it today, that day, didn't overshadow the fact that we'd covered all of it over the last several months. And that was my main point to you.
See, this is Dan. Dan's disappointed by this because ultimately we're getting to like a nitty-gritty of like how the media.
Don't speak for me.
Dan has calmly set this up, and I think he's listening.
I actually think, even though, yes, I like the heat. The heat's fun. I think it's good that Ian's talking about this because this has been a major part of the Watson story, and Gregg, you've been very outspoken, so it's good actually to hear from Ian, who is in a very difficult situation. I mean, where Ian's role at the company and Ian's job is to find a balance to that. So
right, but I would disagree that it was like, okay, right there it was about the football, so that was what was covering. My problem was with the entire 6 months leading up to it. I think throughout the process, a lack of context of what Watson was accused of doing, and also how that could impact like what is moving forward, absolutely made it easier for the Browns to give him this contract, made it easier for his agent to make this money, made it easier for his lawyer to
also
keep fighting against it. And one thing I've really come to believe is that Deshaun Watson's the last person I feel bad for in this scenario, but I think the way that his agent has used his media relationships to gain favorable coverage, and that's not like pro-Watson, it's just silence. But what wasn't brought up in a lot of our coverage is all the negative aspects of what's going to happen when Deshaun and if Deshaun Watson gets traded before he's actually suspended, before these cases were settled. We are seeing that now.
What do you mean by that?
What I mean is that I think the Browns and I think Watson in general are continually surprised about how difficult this process has been and is going to continue to be. And it never made sense to me for him to get traded and for all the business part of it to happen before the legal and especially before the NFL suspension thing happened because of this. And I think if the Browns knew how the last couple of months were going to go, and I think if Deshaun Watson knew how the last 6 months would go, I think they probably would have acted maybe differently. I don't think he wouldn't have necessarily gotten that huge commission for his agent and that huge contract. I don't think it would have happened nearly as quickly and as easily. And you can say, oh, that's him doing a good job, but it's not, because this is going to follow Deshaun Watson forever. It's starting to dawn on him and the Browns, I think, that like this isn't going to go away. And I think one of the reasons why they entered into it is they felt like it was going away because for the most part it had gone away from the national media.
And you think of the timing of it, I disagree with a lot of things you just said, but you think of the timing of it, the trade happened, was it a couple days within the week of him receiving a no bill from one grand jury and then the next grand jury, right? So that was the trade. Now, obviously, there's been 2 and then maybe 2 more lawsuits in addition to that. Obviously, there's been all these depositions, a lot of which has become public. There's been a lot of reporting since then. But the trade and the discussions that we were having on air and in other places all happened in the context of him receiving a no bill, which obviously does not mean he's innocent, but it does mean he is not going to be indicted by a grand jury. So I think that those two facts, the two grand juries, did color the kind of coverage that we gave, which is he's not going to be charged legally. So that sort of gave a window to all of us, I think, to talk about the football part of it, which really paved the way for the trade.
Right. I mean, we don't need to go in circles, and this is similar in some ways, but we got into it a little more, like in a conversation, like I meant, and it wasn't personal. It was just I really disagreed with the way we, like, it's not just you that I talked to about this. I talked to some of the news editorial executives about this too, because it was upsetting. Ultimately, we all work for NFL Media, NFL Network. You want to be like proud of the coverage that you can do, and you should try to like impact the coverage in any way you can. And having gone through the Gregg Hardy and Ray Rice situations, which is very different, but that was at a time when I was having to deal with how we were handling that stuff editorial. I was kind of amazed that A, we had forgotten a lot of the lessons in theory we had learned from back then, and B, I think we were worse now. Like, because I'm not an expert in almost anything, but one thing I feel like I have good experience from after the last 15 years is how the sports media sausage was getting made. And I was seeing how people who are lining their pockets off of Deshaun Watson, namely his agent, but his lawyer too, and the networks and other things who wanted this to go away for the purpose of making money, were helping to make this issue go away. And it's not helping him, and it's not helping the Browns. In the end, I think like this is going to work out worse than any of them imagined it would, and it has.
I would say the assumption that they have all bought the silence of the media doesn't make any sense to me. First of all, we're talking about it here and in many, many other places. Two, I've not had anyone...
We're able to talk about it on our podcast because no one pays attention to our podcast, but we couldn't exactly have these conversations on NFL Network.
That is not true, though. We talk about this constantly on NFL Network. We've talked about the allegations. We've talked about the fallout. We talked about the new lawsuits. Pelissero did Total Access yesterday, and his topic was Deshaun Watson and the new lawsuits. And so I feel like we do talk about it. Every time it comes up, every time it's news, we talk about it, just like every time the football part comes up, we talk about it. What I would also say, one thing we have not done is, and this is, I'm not saying we should deserve like a medal for this, I'm just saying we haven't really been like, oh, well, let's just talk about how great a addition Deshaun Watson is going to be to the Browns offense.
I mean, we did plenty of that in the days after he was traded, and that's fine. Like, you can have both, but we did plenty of that. Trust me.
I just don't want you overlooking the coverage that we've done of all of the negative just because we spend some time on football. Like, we are football reporters.
I also wasn't doing this out of like the goodness of my heart, but it also like I think can help like our industry or you or Schefter has taken, I think, hits because of this. Like, it's not helping you. Like, and we are friends, and I want your coverage to be great and stuff. Like, there are going to be a lot of people that look at the way we do things in a certain way, and it's good for you to know that. You know what I mean? Like, you'd rather know that than not know that, I would assume.
I mean, I'm pretty well aware of all of the things I report on and how they are viewed. I just don't view it as sort of negatively as you do. I spend a lot of my time and a lot of my reporting work trying to figure out how to make that balance that you were talking about, right? Because, you know, obviously the off-the-field stuff is extremely important. It's not just with Deshaun. It's what's going to happen to Baker Mayfield. Okay, well, is he going to get traded? I don't know, but if he does, then he's not going to be the starting quarterback who steps in if and when Deshaun Watson is traded, and that sort of led to another many other news cycles. I don't know. I am, as I told you at the time, I'm fine with my coverage. I know it has not been glory for all of us national media people across the board. I'm fine with the way I've handled it. But I don't mind you. I mean, you're sort of snarky, and that's annoying. But I don't mind you pointing it out because one of the things
in these cases, I wasn't being snarky. I was just kind of furious.
I think he's saying in general.
And it hasn't like gone away. Like I've been surprised that it's stuck with me.
I know, but I would say one of the things with me doing this job and being very public, and not just news, but really all of the things that I do are pretty public, is I don't really care and I don't really mind that all of the things I do get dissected. Like, I don't mind that you're sort of picking apart the coverage. I take issue with some of the conclusions that you made because I think you're wrong on some of them, but it doesn't offend me. And, you know, I would say that jerky tone probably did, but the fact that you critique it, it's all out there. It is all, I mean, the same thing for Schefter. It's like, it is all for everyone to judge. The fact that I disagree on how you judge it is sort of a different topic.
And I told you, like, it wasn't about you either, which was like, that was the whole
but
thing.
That's why
it
I
wasn't
was
like an
annoyed,
Ian Rapoport criticism. I told
know.
you, I could have made a top 10 rankings of the people that have offended me the most, and you would have made the list, but you weren't in the top
You know what
4
we
or
haven't
5.
had, though,
And
Gregg?
that's men, that's women. Like, it wasn't just one type of
We've
person.
heard your take
Yes.
on this for
Yeah.
weeks and weeks, and I strongly link and agree with a lot of what you said. But we have not heard from Ian, and I think that's very glad that happened.
Absolutely.
And now if we can find a way to move past this, I would love to see the men shake hands or perhaps even hug. Is that a possibility?
We would have never have hugged
What?
even beforehand.
This
That's
is
the best of times.
This is a peacemaker
I don't think
request.
either of us are really huggers.
I'm happy to shake hands. I
We
think
can
we
shake
did
hands.
yesterday when we saw
Can we
each
get
other.
a photo of the handshake?
No, I don't
No,
want a photo.
I
no,
mean-
no.
Now you're making it into a
No, yeah.
What do you mean I'm making it into a bit? You, at the very beginning, told me there wasn't even any heat. And, of course, the peacemaker has revealed
bit.
there is plenty of heat.
That was a wrong way to put it.
All
You're,
right.
you're absolutely right.
That
It's
was
not
a-
that there wasn't heat. Like, I was disappointed in something. I'm sure Ian has been disappointed in me in many ways.
Yeah,
What if
some,
I
of
was-
those, some of those tweets, I'm like, God, can Rosenthal just shut up?
What if I were to craft, like back in 4th, 5th grade in the summer when you'd make little friendship bracelets, you'd weave them, and one could have Gregg's name on it, and one could have Ian's name, but you'd wear the other person's name on your wrist. Would you do that?
That's a fair...
No.
Okay.
No.
All right. So, but we are we going to be back on texting terms again after this?
See what he needs.
Well, what can you offer Ian? How about that?
Right, what do you offer in this
Yeah, let's
relationship?
figure something out here.
Comedic advice?
I
If I gotta go see a
offer
comedy
in
show.
In those realms, you know, I give him like these lists of possible cuts and trades.
Now, hold
and
on
then
a sec.
I give
Hold
him
on.
I have given him ideas.
Hold
I
on.
haven't given him ideas for breaking things that I've actually been right about over the
Se-
years that
there
I
have
don't
been-
do. That's
no,
fair.
no, no.
a great
There have
seg.
been this is not a joke. There have been a couple times when he has been like, I was thinking about this. Does this make sense? Has anyone looked into? And there's been a couple stories where I've been like,
Gotten him a couple.
I
stories.
should, I should actually ask about that. And that is true. And then there was another, I cannot remember which. There was definitely a fake trade that you floated that ended up happening, and I cannot remember what it was.
It's a healthy friendship.
Is that enough? Is he giving you enough in
Yeah, I would say
exchange
that's
for
a
it?
couple scoops.
So I think we're getting close here. We're bridging the divide, and I think we have to get back inside
Yeah.
for the second part of the seminar.
I think you're probably right.
I don't know if
Graver
we're going
is
back
spinning
to the
his
text.
fingers, yeah.
I don't know if there's I don't know if we're going back.
But I think maybe there's a post seminar cocktail. Maybe we seal the beef
I
with
don't
a
drink. I don't
Okay.
drink.
Wow.
I'm trying.
That's a lie.
Handshakes,
That's a lie.
hugs, drinks, all out.
I think you
I mean, we
created
can
this,
do a handshake after we're done. We don't have to do it for.
It must be documented for posterity.
this peacemaker nickname you've given yourself.
Yes.
The effort behind it
Yeah.
today has been
Thank you.
thorough.
Disingenuous.
Thank you.
Disingenuous.
My bad. I was trying to be on the same page with you.
The best part is when we got our new contract,
Yeah.
and Gregg had a really nice tweet, and then me and Ian were texting, and Ian was like, "Why don't you put out a tweet so I could quote retweet you?"
Shut up.
So
No,
mad at
no, that's
Rosenthal.
not what I said. No, that's not what I said. That's not what I said. Not what I said. I said, hey, did you guys get a new contract? He said, yeah. I said, I just saw Gregg's tweet. Definitely not retweeting him. You need to do a post now. And then he did a post and bang, retweeted almost immediately.
So there you go. It's my job because I've been on both sides of
That
this
is
is to bring
hilarious.
everyone together again, and I think we've done that on some level.
I don't think you've done it. But I do love that freaking
The
story.
peacemaker has spoken. Everything is okay now.
We're good.
All right, let's get back to the seminar. Let's get back to
right.
Ian. Thank you very much.
No problem. Thanks, guys.
All right, there you go. Can I say something? When we talked about the situation with Gregg and Ian, it's like, oh, it'd be good pod fodder maybe to get them on and just see what happens, see some fireworks go off. But then when the conversation started, I was like, oh, I think this is effective and on a different level because I think it's good to hear both sides of this. And I don't think necessarily, Gregg, you guys ended up landing in the same place, but you just had a better idea of the whole situation, as naughty as it is.
No, I agree. I think it's a good conversation to have, and I appreciated having it and our listeners being able to listen to it. I think it's great to hear like both perspectives of it, and it was not necessarily personal, but you told me that afterwards, like, I didn't really think about that it would get that deep into the Watson stuff, and to me that's all it was about. I mean, that was a very specific to that issue. Like, we've been friendly, as Ian said, for years talking about news stories, and I still do have a major problem. I wish I had said that too. Is like the story is still ongoing, and so that's part of it. Is I'm trying to change how he acts. Is what I'm trying to do. Whether it works or not, I don't think it's going to.
I thought, Gregg, number one, you did not back down from your position at all, and he also showed strength in his position, and that's what made it a great listen. I was an observer for almost 97% of it.
When you say it like that, I want to change how he acts. I don't know if that's necessarily something that is going to cause him to change. If anything, it might cause him to dig in more and be like, forget what Gregg's saying. I mean, it's just just putting it that way, I guess, is what I'm saying.
It's not like I'm like trying to manipulate the situation.
Right.
I'm just trying, like, here's someone I know. I think Deshaun Watson could use some people around him who like tell him things that that are different from the way he's being told them. I think the agent, who I think is really the one I'm talking about here ultimately, and the power that the agent has over the media, and how like David Mulugeta has basically been like, people should be telling him, because ultimately I don't think they're doing themselves any good, and I include that for Ian. I don't want Ian to be remembered or to take a lot of criticism for how we're covering this, and it still feels like we're going down that road.
I don't get the sense you two will be vacationing together on Martha's Vineyard anytime soon.
Here's the question I have, and I was thinking about this after the conversation. You've taken issue with how it's been covered, but do you think if it would have been covered in a way that you found to be more effective or tactful, that would have changed anything about what happened with his? Because I'm going to say no. I think no matter how the media covered this, there's still these NFL teams that want that guy. They don't care so much about the guy off the field if they think they can get away with the off the field stuff. If I can get the top 5 quarterback at 26 years old, I'm paying anyway. So
eventually I agree, but I disagree in that the way that it happened and the timing that it happened. I absolutely think that the media has an enormous impact on how these teams and leagues and players and everyone operate. And if there was a loud drumbeat, it wouldn't have just been Ian, but if there was been a different way that the entire media was covering it, and there was still like a lot of pressure and a lot of negativity out there, I don't think it would have happened in that timeline. I think it would have waited until he was suspended. I don't think he would have gotten his guaranteed contract like that. I do think it would have been a different.
I want to agree with you, but I can't. I think that there were multiple teams pursuing him, and I think I don't think it would have changed it.
I think eventually it all would have come out in the same place, and that was more the problem that I had.
And
that's even more cynical. It's like they're pandering to a certain public opinion, but they're going to go do what they want anyways.
I used to have this sort of cynical view, even when I was sort of quasi in the media, that like actually we didn't have that much of an impact, and you realize that's wrong. Like Jimmy Haslam and Roger Goodell and all the like major players in this are absolutely frightened and hate like the media reaction and want to diminish it as much as possible. And when it's loud, they have to act. I mean, the only reason why there's like the Black Lives Matter and the different statements on the side of the fields and everything that's happening is because of media and public pressure. Like, it's not from any like different feelings, and I would consider like this would be the same way. If there was more media pressure and public pressure, it'd be different.
I will say I have been encouraged, because I think there was a frustration a lot of us had when the deal went down with the Browns, and you saw there was all guaranteed money, and even how the contract was backloaded to protect him in the event he's suspended, that there are the Jenny Vrenteses in the world, that there is the HBO Real Sports and that expose they did, that the drumbeat has continued and kept the heat on Watson and on the league and on the lawyers, and I think that's going to continue. And again, I think we talked about this with Ian, just that I don't think the Browns anticipated this continuing this way. I don't think that Deshaun Watson did.
And it's potentially just starting. He might be battling these things for a year or two in court, and I don't think they quite considered how that was going to play out.
All right. So there you go, Gregg.
And I just want to say we did get the handshake that was teased at the end of
we did.
appearance.
We had it documented.
We have it.
Good for posterity.
Thanks to Drake, we had the.
I don't know why too.
No, I don't want that. Like that is
what
that because then we're making like that was stupid.
What? What's stupid? The camera's on. It's recording everything we do.
That's fine, but I don't want to be like playing it up for like it's like George Bush mission accomplished. Banner is dropping behind him.
It's simply for our archive.
Sure. Okay.
It's something important to have.
I found this
and
problematic.
Instagram, potentially.
They refuse to embrace. Why can't two male coworkers who have come to an agreement on a topic?
Well, you have to know both the men involved. They're not big huggers.
I understand that, but that would have been next level. Would have been maybe more appropriate.
It's fine. You have, different acquaintances, coworkers, colleagues that you go through life, and you don't have to have the same relationship the whole time. Sometimes you realize.
Well, you are a fine example of that.
Yeah, Dan is so on top of this, and we don't need to get into the details. But he actually called me on his way home, I believe, last night, still trying to.
Well, the peacemaker doesn't sleep.
Yeah,
it's not like the peacemaker takes off the headset. And the peacemaker's
he is
done.
Uncomfortable because he's been friends with Ian, as he said, for 20 years, and he's worked with me as a colleague with no friendship for 10 years too. So he wants those two people to stay.
Greg, you are my friend as well.
For Dan, this is manna from heaven. I mean, this is like liquid gold to Dan.
Like Gregg was pretending his feelings were hurt when we taped with Kyle or with Ian. And I did come up to him privately, Gregg, and I put my arm around him and made him. He stiffened up, he tightened up, like a porcupine. And I said, "You are my friend, Gregg."
Yes, you did. I was not really offended. You are reading the room right. That I'm.
All right,
some fun.
There we go. Here we are. It's time to say goodbye. I'm getting on a plane and heading to Texas.
Oh.
So
I might do the same.
I will be up there in G Bob's attic next time we're doing a show together. So we continue on. Anybody else have anything to say? Thank you to everybody for listening. Thank you to Ian. Thank you to Kyle. Thank you to the listeners. Till Monday. Heed the call.
Full of heart from start to finish. Delivers on the great tension of the NFL draft while showing how human the entire process is.
Well, now, hold on.
Marc Sessler, NFL.com, around the league. That's the banner ad running across the homepage.
Where's the music from?
When did Marc become Belgium? What was that?
That was the reviewer. I asked the Gold Center to deliver me some background music with emotional heft.
That was a great.
I thought that was Dances with Wolves, potentially.
I was eternally vigilant while I was watching the movie, waiting just to jump over some scene that really wouldn't happen in the NFL. And for the most part, I thought it rang pretty true.